As requested, the writing is in simple, suspenseful English with a cinematic tone, like a breaking news documentary mixed with political espionage. The story ends on an intense but grounded note, true to the themes of power, secrets, and sacrifice. The capital was on lockdown by midnight. Jasmine stood alone under the marble columns, her breath fogging in the warm night air. Sirens wailed in the distance. Helicopters hovered overhead. The city felt like it was holding its breath, unsure whether to scream or stay silent. Malik sat on the steps beside her, laptop open, his face glowing from the screen. "Half the world is already reacting," he said quietly. "Russia's disconnected from the SWIFT network. China has shut down for embassies. Brussels just called an emergency NATO session." Jasmine didn't speak. Her heart still raced from what they had just done. "I saw Stephen go down," Malik added. "He bought us time." The system purge completed. Lazarus is dead. She finally looked at him. Her eyes didn't show relief, only the weight of what came next. "You think killing a lie means the truth wins?" she said softly. "But truth doesn't win. It just survives long enough to be useful." The air buzzed. Her phone lit up. "Private number," she answered. Congresswoman Crockett came a familiar voice, cold, careful, calculating. "We need you to come in for questioning. Who is this? You know who this is? And you know what you've exposed?" There was a pause. "You and your team just dismantled one of the deepest intelligence layers this government has ever built. And now the world is watching. You don't get to just walk away." Jasmine held the phone closer. "I didn't do this for attention," she said. "I did this because you turned politics into theater and truth into a weapon. And you just launched a war." The line went dead. Malik looked up. "They're coming for you." "I know." She stood, brushed dust off her blazer, and began walking down the steps. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To finish this by dawn." Clips of the Lazarus leak had made it onto every major news outlet. CNN aired a special report showing fragments of the simulation voice prints, fabricated speeches, election strategies engineered to fail in targeted districts. The footage was undeniable. Jasmine had sent it all to the press. Just before the servers were destroyed, Stephen's name trended worldwide. Half hailed him as a whistleblower. Half condemned him as a traitor. His body hadn't been found. The president addressed the nation at 9 a.m. behind polished podiums and patriotic flags. She stood tight-lipped and pale. "There are forces," she said, "within and outside this country who wish to divide us, who exploit our trust, our fears, and our silence. Today, we begin a full review of classified programs connected to digital warfare and information control." It was a vague admission, but it was more than Jasmine expected. Still, she knew that real war wouldn't be fought on TV. It would be fought in coded servers, secret meetings, and backroom deals. She returned to her office in the Capitol later that day. Everything looked normal. Her desk, her files, her framed photo with her grandmother. But the air felt different, like history had walked through the room and was waiting for its next line. She sat, took a breath, and pressed record. "This is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I don't know if this will air. I don't know if they'll bury it like everything else. But I need to say it out loud." Pause. "I was accused of hiding something. But what I saw was far worse than any lie about my marriage. It was a lie written into the operating system of our democracy. A blueprint for silence. And when I tried to pull it apart, I realized." Another pause. Her voice cracked. "I don't care who gets hurt. They don't care if the country burns as long as the cameras stay off and the money keeps flowing." She leaned closer. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for support. I'm asking for you to look. Don't scroll past it. Don't wait for someone else to fix it. 'Cause they're not coming." She hit stop. Malik uploaded the video. Was live in 5 minutes. By evening, hashtag I Stand With Jasmine was trending. So was hash What is Lazarus? So was hashtag Where's Stephen Miller? -1. Week later, in a silent hotel room in Vienna, a man sat in front of a blank screen. He had no name now, no passport, just a burner phone and an envelope filled with flight documents. The screen blinked. A message appeared. Ready to talk? Stephen Miller stared at it. Behind him, a cracked window showed lights flashing on European rooftops. He typed, "I'll talk, but only if she's safe." The reply came instantly. "She's still alive for now." He exhaled, closed the screen. The game was still on, and the next move would decide not just the truth, but the future of the entire world. The end. At 3:43 a.m., Washington, D.C. went dark. It started with a flicker, traffic lights blinking, news broadcasts freezing mid-sentence, studio feeds turning to static. Within minutes, entire government servers were unreachable. Jasmine Crockett stared at the screen in her secure apartment. Her live video had cut out just 20 seconds earlier, just before she could name the internal contractor behind the Black Thread protocol. "They pulled the plug," Malik said, pacing the room. "Whole chunks of the internet are down across the eastern seaboard. Newsrooms, civic databases, energy dashboards, offline." Jasmine didn't blink. "They're running containment." On the table, her laptop showed an error message. "Transmission terminated. Access suspended." Then came the knock. It wasn't loud. It was deliberate. Malik peeked through the camera. Unmarked car, no plates, 2 men in suits. No weapons visible. Jasmine closed the laptop and slipped the flash drive into her boot. "Get to the basement. Go through the parking exit," she said. "They're here for me, I'll stall. But if they're here to clean up, no one's safe." Malik hesitated. "Jas, I'm not leaving. Go." He vanished down the fire stairs. Jasmine opened the door. "Congresswoman Crockett," the taller man asked. He held up a silver badge. "Not a government one, private intelligence. We'd like a moment of your time." "Then speak fast," Jasmine said, "'cause you just cut my feed." "Not conversation. That's censorship." The other man smiled faintly. "We prefer to think of it as containment. You've touched something far bigger than you realize." "I'm aware," Jasmine said calmly. "The people who built it don't want voters to know they're part of a system that predicts, manipulates, and neutralizes dissent." "That's poetic," the tall one said, "but inaccurate. This isn't about control. It's about stability. If the public sees the raw footage, if Phase 3 reaches outside hands, it already has." Jasmine interrupted. "A copy with a European journalist, another with a U.S. senator, and one in the hands of someone neither of you can trace." The two men exchanged a look. The taller one sighed. "Then this is no longer about you." He reached for his earpiece and said something Jasmine couldn't hear. A second later, the lights in the hallway died. Power cut. But Jasmine was already running, down 3 floors. Through the boiler room, across the underground exit. She met Malik by a black SUV parked near the dumpsters. "Where's the backup?" "Signal?" she asked. "Dead. But I uploaded a tracer. If anyone boots the files from a different IP, we'll know." Jasmine breathed out, wiped the sweat from her brow, and leaned into the seat. Malik pulled out a burner phone. "You need to hear this." He hit play. It was a voicemail. Richard's voice. "Jasmine, it's worse than we thought. Phase 3 isn't just about voter behavior or manipulation. It's predictive warfare. They used it to simulate civil unrest after future elections and decide which communities could be contained or sacrificed without destabilizing the economy." Jasmine's heart stopped. "They were never just watching us," she whispered. "They were testing outcomes." The voice continued. "Phase 4, the part no one's seen, contains foreign asset integration, names agents, including one who sits on the National Intelligence Committee. If that file surfaces, it could mean war." The message ended. Jasmine looked at Malik. "Do we have Phase 4? "No," he said. But we have the path to it." He opened a folder, It held a single printed image, a scan of a physical keycard with the Pentagon seal on it. Richard left it with an old friend, Malika explained. A retired NSA cryptographer in New Mexico, named Waller. The key gets us into an offline archive facility, one built in the Cold War era. That's where Phase 4 is stored. Jasmine's mind raced. If they know we're going there, they'll intercept us, Malik finished. Or they'll destroy the facility first. She stared out at the highway. It won't destroy it, she said, because they think we won't make it in time. 12 hours later, they reached Los Alamos. A military drone hovered nearby as they drove through the desert. Old signs read, "Restricted area. Federal use only, violators will be visible." We detained, they stopped in front of a rusted compound, half buried in the sand. Waller was waiting. He looked 70, maybe 80. But his eyes were sharper than anyone's. "You've brought the storm," he said, looking at Jasmine. "And the key." She handed it over. Waller led them inside, deep underground, past Cold War blueprints and walls lined with copper wiring. Finally, they reached a terminal room. He inserted the key card and typed a code. The server woke up, lights blinking like nervous fireflies. A screen appeared. Phase 4, Operation Vanta. Waller leaned forward. "Before I open this," he said, "you should know. The last person who accessed this file was Stephen Miller." Jasmine froze. "He was on the oversight panel," Waller continued. "Years ago, he saw the early model. He even advised on the language that would allow it to be used without public knowledge." Malik whispered he wasn't ranting on live TV. He was warning us, in his own twisted way. Jasmine's pulse throbbed in her throat. "Open it," she said. The file loaded. Names, locations, simulation graphs, influence algorithms. But one name repeated again and again. Project Lazarus status. Activated. Jasmine stepped back. 'Cause Project Lazarus wasn't a simulation, it was a trigger. And someone had already pulled it. The next part of this story wasn't just political. It was global. And it had already begun. The file kept loading, line after line of data. Security clearances, archived footage, old memos marked top secret and eyes only. Project Lazarus, Waller repeated under his breath. "I never thought they'd actually activate it." "What is it?" Jasmine asked. Waller looked over his glasses. "It's not a program. It's a failsafe. A weapon made of information." He pressed a few keys and a new screen came up. Lazarus Protocol phase initiated. July 14th, 2025. That was 3 days ago. Waller explained slowly. The public ever came close to discovering the full extent of the surveillance simulations, especially foreign manipulation? Lazarus would trigger. It would release carefully selected documents into rival nations. Networks framed to look like a leak from U.S. adversaries. "False flags," Malik said. "Designed to start conflict." "Exactly," Waller said. "They want chaos. Controlled chaos. 'Cause if people are fighting each other, they're not looking at the machine that started the fire." Jasmine stepped back. She felt like her body was floating, weightless and drowning at the same time. "So what now?" she asked. "We tell the world. Release the real files before Lazarus finishes." "It may already be too late," Waller replied. "There's evidence that Phase 1 was sent to Beijing this morning. Phase 2 is scheduled for Moscow within the next 24 hours. Jasmine's phone buzzed. An encrypted alert from Richard's safe server intercepted internal chatter. Foreign embassies reacting to Lazarus leaks. Washington is silent. Classified. Emergency session is being held at the Capitol tonight. You need to be there." Her fingers gripped the phone. "They're trying to bury this before it explodes." Waller turned to Malik. "If she enters the Capitol tonight, they might not let her leave." "She has no choice," Malik said. "They'll erase everything, even her name." Jasmine looked up. Her voice was low but firm. "No one erases. Me, not tonight." By 9 p.m., she stood in front of the Capitol gates. No press, no protesters, just military police and tinted SUVs. She showed her ID. The guard stared too long, then nodded. Inside, the chamber was locked. The session was already underway. Jasmine walked through the marble halls, heart pounding. Behind those closed doors, America's top leaders from both parties were discussing a program that didn't officially exist. She reached a security door, scanned her fingerprint. Access denied. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Behind her, she turned. Stephen Miller. No suit, no camera. Just a dark overcoat and a grim expression. "They didn't invite you either?" Jasmine asked. Stephen gave a tired smile. "They're trying to protect the illusion. You and I. We broke the script." Jasmine folded her arms. "So why are you here?" "Same reason as you," he said. "Because this isn't about parties anymore. It's about what survives when." The mask drops. "You started this," Jasmine snapped. "You went off script on national television and threw me into the fire." "I lit a match," Miller replied. But the room was already filled with gas. He handed her a folder. Inside, a printed map of underground Capitol access tunnels. Marked Level 4 Sub-Basement Emergency Archive Server Room. "There. Going to reboot the whole Lazarus framework from there," Miller said. "Erase all metadata. Burn the paper trail." Jasmine stared at him. "Why help me?" He looked tired. "Because sometimes it takes the wrong person to do the right thing," she nodded. "Then let's finish what we started." They moved fast. Through corridors guarded by motion cameras, past halls covered in paintings of dead men who'd built quiet empires. They found the access panel. Malik was already inside, rerouting signals. At 10:12 p.m., Jasmine entered the sub-basement. Rows of machines hummed quietly. And there, behind a thick glass barrier, was the Lazarus core. A black cube, cold, smooth, cables running into the floor. The next morning, Jasmine Crockett sat in silence as the lights flickered inside her office. The blinds were drawn shut. Outside, reporters were shouting questions, their voices muffled through the glass. Her YouTube broadcast had gone viral. Overnight, the truth was out, or at least a piece of it. But with it came a storm that felt bigger than anything she'd faced in Congress. Malik stood by the window, scanning his tablet. CNN, MSNBC, Al Jazeera, even foreign outlets. They're all running versions of the same headline. "Crockett versus the surveillance machine." "Let them," Jasmine said softly, adjusting her blazer. "Now it's not just about me." Malik's voice dropped. "There's more. That anonymous account, the one that posted the recast file. They posted again, only this time they dropped something unredacted." He handed her the tablet. On screen was a clean document titled Project Ephrata, Communication Interception. Protocols, Privileged Access Brief. Beneath it, dozens of names. Half of them were lawmakers. A few were foreign diplomats. And their online 19 Crockett. Jasmine froze. "This file isn't just surveillance. It's a map of who knew and who let it happen." Malik nodded. "And it's not just you being exposed now. Whoever leaked this, they're targeting the entire system." Before Jasmine could respond, her secure phone buzzed. "Private line, no caller ID," she answered carefully. "Congresswoman Crockett," said a man's deep voice. "You don't know me, but I knew Richard Banks." Jasmine straightened in her chair. "Go on." "I used to work with him at Tetracore. He was part of a team that helped build the recast protocol. But when he saw what they were planning, he ran." "And now he's alive?" she asked. "Yes, and he wants to meet you." There was silence for a beat. "When tonight?" "Union Station. Lower platform. No security, no press. Come alone." The call ended. Jasmine slowly lowered the phone. Malik looked at her with concern. "You can't go alone." "I have to," she said. "If he's alive, he may be the only one who can prove this goes deeper." That night, Jasmine wore a plain coat, no jewelry, no official badges. She took a car without plates and drove herself. No one could know, not even her closest allies. The station was almost empty, except for a few late commuters. She walked past track 12, then down the staircase to the old freight platform. There, under the dim yellow lights, a man stood with a baseball cap pulled low. He turned when he saw her. Richard. He nodded. He looked older, thinner, like someone who had been on the run for years. "You were supposed to be dead," she whispered. "They wanted me to be," he replied. "But I couldn't let them bury this alone." He handed her a worn flash drive. Inside is a direct link between Recast and the Federal Data Exchange, an underground server system, tied to 5 nations. Surveillance, manipulation, even vote predictions. Jasmine took the drive. Why now? Because they've activated part of it again. They're planning something big. That file Miller leaked on air, that wasn't a mistake. It was a warning to you to stay quiet. Jasmine shook her head. Then they don't know me at all. Richard looked over his shoulder. They're watching you, Jasmine, maybe even right now. But they're also scared. You're not just a politician anymore. You're a threat to their design. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Jasmine turned sharply. 2 men in dark coats appeared at the far end of the platform. "We're not safe," Richard said. "There's an exit under the stairs. Go." Jasmine hesitated, but he pushed her. "Take the drive. The public needs the truth." She ran, heart pounding. Behind her, she heard a struggle, voices yelling. A scuffle, but she didn't look back. She emerged on the side of the station, ducked into an alley, and vanished into the night. Back at her apartment, she locked the door, pulled out her laptop, and inserted the drive. It opened immediately. Inside, video files, emails, and a folder marked Phase 3 black thread. She clicked. The screen loaded a map of the U.S., dotted with red lights. Each one marked a region, labeled not by cities but by voting districts. Each dot had data tags, influence-tested AI prediction matches, result manipulated. She covered her mouth in shock. They weren't just collecting information. They were steering democracy. The doorbell rang suddenly. Jasmine froze. She hadn't told anyone she was home. Another ring, then silence. On her phone, an encrypted message arrived. Unknown sender. Just 2 words. "We see you." Her heart raced. She turned off the lights and backed into the hallway. Somewhere outside, forces were moving, watching, reacting. But she had something they feared now. Proof, and tomorrow she would decide who in the world got to see it. The next morning, Washington didn't wake up. It jolted. By 6 a.m. Every major news outlet was broadcasting a breaking alert. Classified surveillance leak expands. Source unknown. Screens showed blurred documents, data maps, and code. The flash drive Jasmine had received was now in motion. Someone had uploaded parts of it, not her. Not yet. Jasmine stood in front of her apartment window, coffee untouched. Her eyes were locked on the screen. "It's out," Malik whispered, walking in. But not everything. Just enough to shake the system. The real bomb Phase 3. That's still hidden. Jasmine nodded slowly. "Richard warned me this would happen. If they sensed the leak, they'd move first. They want to control the story before I do." Her encrypted laptop beeped. A message flashed. "Private video request, live secure session host, Sen." Vera Dalton Intelligence Chair. Jasmine hesitated. Vera Dalton was no friend. A centrist power broker with global ties and a long memory. Still ignoring it wasn't an option. She accepted. Vera's face appeared, cold and controlled. Her background was a secure DC bunker. No windows, no light. "Congresswoman Crockett," Vera said flatly, "you are in possession of classified national security material." Jasmine didn't flinch. It's material that proves illegal surveillance, foreign collusion, and data rigging across districts. Shouldn't we be investigating that instead? Vera leaned in. "You're playing with matches inside a missile silo? You even understand what you've touched?" Jasmine answered calmly, "Yes. And I think the American people deserve to understand it too." Vera narrowed her eyes. Then let me be clear. If even a fraction of Phase 3 is made public, global alliances will collapse. Nations will retaliate. People will die. Do you want that blood on your name or yours? Jasmine shot back. There was silence on the line. Finally, Vera said, "A private meeting. 4 p.m. Secure location. Bring the drive." The screen went black. Malik spoke up. "This feels like a trap." "I know," Jasmine replied, "but it's also an invitation. She's scared. That means she knows something I need." By afternoon, Jasmine arrived at a nondescript building 5 blocks from Capitol Hill. The guards didn't search her. They already knew everything about her. Inside, the air was cold. Walls made of steel. Cameras in every corner. Vera sat at a long glass table with 3 other people, all from foreign consulates. Germany, Israel, Saudi Arabia. This wasn't just political anymore. This was international. Vera motioned for Jasmine to sit. "We've reviewed Phase 3, said the man from Berlin, his accent crisp. "It references an AI operation capable of predicting and influencing voter behavior in multiple democracies and deploying targeted misinformation in real time," added the woman from Tel Aviv, which we now suspect was tested during the Nairobi protests, and the Paris media blackout. Jasmine's eyes widened. "You're saying the U.S. system wasn't just watching, it was shaping world events?" "No," said Vera. "We're saying someone within our system built a machine that could. And if you release the final file, they'll disappear it before the public understands what they're looking at." Jasmine placed the flash drive on the table. Said, "Not with spin, not with spin, not behind closed doors. On record." With evidence, the Saudi diplomat leaned forward. "Do you have a platform?" Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, and I'm going to use it." That night, Jasmine went live from her personal channel. One with over 2 million subscribers and millions more watching through restreams. She didn't speak like a politician. She spoke like a woman who had been hunted and was still standing. "I want to show you something," she said. On screen, she displayed the red map from Phase 3. Districts, data tags, predictions. "This isn't a theory. It's code. It's names. It's you." She played a 10-second clip of an internal conversation government contractors talking about voter emotion triggers and target narrative calibration. The chat went silent. Then it exploded. Within minutes, hashtags flooded in. Hashtag Black Thread Protocol. Hashtag Digital Coup. Hashtag She Exposed It. The White House press secretary rushed to address it. "These files are unverified," she claimed. But 2 former intelligence agents confirmed them live on air just hours later. Suddenly, the story wasn't about Jasmine Crockett or Stephen Miller. It wasn't even about Congress. It was about a machine. Built silently, used selectively, controlled secretly. Jasmine watched it all unfold with Malik beside her. "I didn't think it would move this fast," he said. "I did," she whispered. "The truth always moves fast when people aren't. Ready for it?" Just then, her phone rang again. "No caller ID," she answered. "A familiar voice, Richard. They're going to shut it all down. Everything. Servers, signals." Bright lights filled the studio. The audience clapped loudly as the show's music faded into the background. On screen, the headline read, "America Tonight. The Future of Democracy." Stephen Miller, former senior advisor to the Trump administration, sat in a sharp navy suit, looking tense. His jaw was tight, his fingers locked together. Opposite him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, focused, her posture straight, her eyes clear. She wore a simple, dark blazer, and her microphone was clipped with care. A few quiet breaths steadied her before the cameras rolled. The host, David Klein, greeted them both. "We're joined tonight by 2 powerful voices. We'll be talking voter access, the economy, and where the country goes next." The first few minutes went smoothly. Talking points were shared. Miller criticized the current administration for what he called reckless spending. Jasmine countered with statistics about job growth and education reform. The audience responded with polite claps. Klein nodded, occasionally stepping in to keep the rhythm. Then, halfway through the segment, everything changed. Miller sat forward. He placed both hands on the desk. His voice dropped slightly, but his words cut with sharpness. "The left loves to talk about transparency," he said, locking eyes with Jasmine. "But maybe they should look in the mirror first." Klein shifted in his seat. Jasmine didn't move. "I'm tired of watching leaders like this," Miller continued, motioning toward her. "Pretend they're clean, when in fact they're hiding backroom deals, secret relationships, and, frankly, fabricated marriages." The studio went silent. Jasmine's face didn't change. Her hands remained still on her lap. Klein cleared his throat. "Stephen, if we can stay on the topic of voting rights." "No," Miller interrupted. "We need to stop pretending these people are who they say they are. I know what's going on behind the scenes. We all do." The words were vague but loaded. The room's air tightened. Camera operators glanced at each other. Producers in the control room began whispering into headsets. Miller leaned closer to the mic. "This isn't just about policy. It's personal, it's performative, and it's corrupt." Jasmine finally moved. She adjusted her microphone slowly, then raised her chin. "Stephen," she said in a clear, steady voice, "I'm not sure what delusion you're swimming in today. But if you came here to talk about marriage rumors instead of real issues like voter suppression and economic injustice, then you're in the wrong seat." The audience gasped softly. A few people murmured. The tension felt electric. Miller smirked, as if daring her to continue. "You don't want the truth out," he said, "but it's already leaking." The host tried to shift the conversation. "Let's bring it back to," but the moment was gone. The studio no longer felt like a political debate. It felt like a battlefield. Within minutes of airing, social media exploded. Hashtag Jasmine exposed, hashtag Stephen snaps, hashtag fabricated marriage, hashtag capital secrets. Clips of the segment went viral. TikToks, YouTube, replays, political breakdowns. Analysts and influencers rushed to explain the real meaning of Miller's attack. Some said it was classic deflection. Others believed he knew something serious. But beneath the chaos, something strange happened. Late that night, a small, independent news site named Sentinel Wire published a short post. It was just 200 words long. The headline read, "Leaked doc mentions Crockett. Sealed Senate file raises questions." The article claimed that a sealed document from the 2020 Senate Intelligence Committee had been flagged by an anonymous source. The file was tagged with the label JSCR-27B, initials believed to stand for Jasmine S. Crockett. According to Sentinel Wire, the document wasn't about marriage, it was about national security. And it had something to do with a failed surveillance bill that was never made public. By midnight, bigger outlets picked up the story. CNN and MSNBC didn't confirm the leak, but they mentioned it. Fox News pushed the story hard, calling it the bombshell no one saw coming. Inside Jasmine's D.C. apartment, she sat at her kitchen table. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Campaign aides, lawyers, journalists. She ignored most of the calls. Her laptop sat open. On the screen was an email, no subject line. It's just one sentence. "They're not after your marriage. They're after what you witnessed in 2017. She stared at it for a long time. No sender address, no traceable link. She remembered 2017. A hearing held behind closed doors. Only a few members of Congress had access. It was about cyber intelligence, surveillance laws, and national security loopholes. Jasmine hadn't spoken about it in years. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text. "They'll use everything, even your personal life, to silence you. Be ready." Back in the newsrooms, reporters dug deeper. Some found that Jasmine's marriage records were sealed. Not illegal, but unusual. Others claimed her supposed ex-husband had worked in cybersecurity before disappearing in 2020. Theories piled up. Who was her husband? Was Miller bluffing? Or was he sending a signal? Jasmine shut her laptop. She knew something was coming, but it wasn't just about her. It was bigger, deeper. Across town, Stephen Miller entered a private elevator in an unmarked building. A man in a gray suit greeted him at the top floor. "Did she take the bait?" the man asked. Miller smiled. "She doesn't know it yet," he replied, "but she just opened a door she can't close." The next morning, the sun rose over Washington, D.C., but the storm hadn't passed. In fact, it had just begun. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped into her office, greeted by hushed tones and tense stares from her staff. The air was thick with worry. Screens across the room played news anchors on loop, dissecting every word of last night's live broadcast. Her name was everywhere, and not for the reasons she wanted. Stephen Miller accuses Congresswoman of personal scandal. Sealed file raises questions about Crockett's past. Who is JSCR-27B? Jasmine moved past the screens without reacting. She entered her private office, shut the door behind her, and sat in silence. Her chief of staff, Malik, entered moments later, holding a tablet. "We have a problem," he said, his voice low but urgent. "No," she replied calmly. "We have an opportunity." Malik raised an eyebrow. "Stephen just made you the centerpiece of a national circus." "He thinks this'll scare me into silence," Jasmine said. "But he slipped last night. He wasn't supposed to mention JSCR-27B. Malik handed her the tablet, the leak spreading. Sentinel Wire posted a follow-up. They say the document refers to a 2017 covert vote on international data sharing programs. Names blacked out, but one tag matches you. Jasmine scrolled through the article. She knew what it meant and what it didn't say. 6 years ago, she had sat in a classified intelligence meeting about a surveillance pact between 5 countries, a proposal that would have allowed mass data sweeps without judicial oversight. She had voted against it quietly, hoping it would die in silence. But someone had kept a record, and someone wanted to weaponize it now. "Why now?" Malik asked. "Because someone knows I'm close to exposing something bigger," she said. "And they're getting nervous." Outside her office, a dozen reporters waited for a statement. The networks were hungry. The public was confused. No one knew what was real anymore. Meanwhile, across the city, Stephen Miller walked into a high-rise building just blocks from Capitol Hill. He wasn't alone. 3 men waited inside a glass conference room, older, powerful, and silent as he entered. "You didn't stick to the script," one of them said coldly. "I improvised," Miller answered, taking a seat. She needed to feel cornered. "You might have exposed the project," another snapped. "You understand how much is buried in that file?" Miller leaned back in his chair. "I also triggered the media. We control that part. Let them chase the marriage story. Let her spend her time denying rumors instead of asking the right questions." The third man, quiet until now, finally spoke. "And what if she does ask the right questions?" Miller smiled. Then we moved to phase 2. Back at the Capitol, Jasmine prepared for her afternoon briefing. Her aide slipped her a folder, anonymous envelope, no return address. She opened it carefully. Inside were 3 black and white photographs, grainy, surveillance style. One photo showed her meeting with a whistleblower from the cybersecurity firm Tetracore, a company later linked to backdoor spyware contracts. Another showed her at an airport, speaking to someone whose face was blurred out. And the third, a shot of her entering a classified Senate building in 2017. Jasmine's hand trembled slightly. "Someone's watching every step I take," she whispered. "There's more," Malik said. "It's a blurred figure in that airport photo. We ran facial structure checks. It's Richard Banks." Jasmine looked up. That can't be. He disappeared 5 years ago. Now he's back. And someone's warning you to stop digging. Banks had once been a senior engineer at Tetracore. He'd reached out to Jasmine during her first campaign, claiming the company had developed tools that violated civil liberties. Tools that allowed for silent data collection through common apps and personal messages. He had vanished shortly, after she refused to take his evidence public until now. As evening approached, Jasmine went live on her personal YouTube channel, bypassing traditional media. The title read, "The Truth They Don't Want You to Know." She appeared calm on screen, her background simple. No flashy graphics, just her and a microphone. "I've stayed quiet long enough," she began. "But I won't let false rumors distract from real corruption.